So I think that one of the critical issues that we found is that evidence is very powerful. And anytime we're able to capture this and bring that to bear in our advocacy, it makes our advocacy quite strong. So it's no longer the fact that you are speaking because you want to speak, or you are asking that the country should stop torturing, or you're mentioning that victims should be rehabilitated and supported or compensated. It's not just because you're saying it because you feel like saying, but you have a proof to show for it. Now, we have about 173 countries or state parties that have keyed in onto this. And I think maybe about 22 more state parties that, needs to join to have universal, ratification of the UNCTAD, okay? So one thing is about signing and ratifying a UN convention, or indeed, the other thing is what are the key steps that have been taken to implement. And I find that over the time, many countries, many member states of UN have failed to have this process of making sure that the implementation of what has been signed is really the issue. And I think it's really done. So I think that documentation provides us a very important process to be able to actually hold the country accountable, to be able to say, this is exactly the proof of what has been done. And this is actually what we can argue in terms of what will be the response of the country in terms of when we can show pure evidence as to something that has gone wrong. I also think that beyond this documentation helping us to be able to deal with the individual case in terms of the kind of rehabilitation that person has, it is also something that provides opportunity for us to look at what the trend is, what are the trend analysis, and this becomes very powerful when you are dealing with the issue of advocacy. That you can say that over this particular period, we were able to find out that this issue was happening more with perhaps persons of a particular age group, or persons of a particular socioeconomic class, or persons who are located or in a particular area. And we can say that this is actually happening, or the perpetrators are mainly more persons who are based, maybe the police or any other. So I think that when we are able to find this trend, and it then gives us the tools that we can take on and then move on our advocacy. For example, in Nigeria, we have both the Senate and the House of Representatives to say to them, and within that, you also see committees that are in charge of human rights, committees that are in charge of maybe reformatory institutions. And we have found that each time we come for those platforms, and we're able to give concrete statistics, concrete evidence, flowing from clear documentation that we've made, it works like, if I must use the word, like magic. So I think that this is a very powerful tool that we should not ignore. But you can also use it in terms of raising awareness with key professionals. We had a virtual session sometime last year, and we had doctors who had signed into that virtual session. And again, by the time in one of the sessions that we started discussing some of these issues and began to say some of what the evidence that we're getting from the field, we realized that some doctors began to then open up to say, this is what we are finding out in our day-to-day work, which aligns with what we are saying. And it was easy for us to have many of them sign up to serve as volunteers, okay, into the scheme. Now, I also would like to mention one other thing in relation to how powerful this can also be. How powerful you can be able to use some of these tools to be able to make certain levels of advocacy. So it is not beyond the points I have mentioned. I also find that even when we are doing clearly public awareness, which I've also found that oftentimes the government agencies will not do much until they see that there is a media engagement on this. And what did we do? We had a network of journalists. This network of journalists, which were picked from relevant desks from a different media houses across the country. So we had a system where, first of all, we did the training for these journalists. And the second level, what we did was we started producing fact sheets between 2 and 4 pages on different issues. But this fact sheet also contained certain statistics, of course, coming up from trend analysis and all that. And of course, within those statistics, you are not being specific. You're not going to mention any direct victim. You are looking at mentioning the trend. You are looking at mentioning the key things you are seeing without necessarily mentioning any individual victim. But that was providing information to these journalists that they are now using to write stories they were using, and to kind of push a lot of information out there. And what we were doing was to increase the quality and the frequency of media reportage on these issues. Now, what the journalists were doing was that the stories and features that they would do for that period will focus on the theme of that particular month, or that theme, which is the theme of the fact sheet. So you find sometimes 5, 6, 10, 11, 12 of them in different formats using that. What that was doing was it was increasing the level of awareness on this issue out there to the policymakers.